Hello, and welcome to the first video for Alchemy Community Spotlight. My name is Sean, and in this first video I'm going to tell you 5 things that I love about Alchemy, and that you might love too. And in the interest of thoroughness, I'll talk about a few things that some people don't love. If you're not familiar with virtual tabletops or VTTs, they are applications or websites that enable you to play tabletop role-playing games with people online. They provide a digital version of your character sheet, dice, and battle maps, and they keep everything in sync between all of the players and the GM. There are a lot of VTTs out there with somewhat different capabilities, but Alchemy is my favorite, and here's why. Reason 1, immersion. If there's one thing that sets Alchemy apart from other VTTs, it's its emphasis on creating an immersive environment. Most other VTTs put the focus squarely on the battle map, really leaning into the concept of a virtual tabletop. They're functional, but utilitarian, and their user interfaces can be distracting. Like other VTTs, Alchemy has scenes, and like other VTTs, a scene can include a battle map. But that is only the tactical mode. Where Alchemy's scenes really shine is in the story mode. That's where you can add visuals and sound to portray a location or an encounter or even just a mood. You can make scenes as simple or as intricate as you want. You might just use a static background image, or you could use a video. You can add a motion overlay, or you could add 2, which also gives you this cool little parallax effect when you move your mouse. You can add music, and you can add an ambient soundtrack. And you can put all of these things together in different combinations to create a completely different mood. This version uses the same background image, but it sets a very different tone. And one more cool thing about the music. Alchemy supports dynamic music with 3 separate tracks. The GM can use this slider here to adjust the balance of the tracks to tailor the music to what's happening in the game. So you can make things more tense, or more dramatic, or more ominous, or you can combine them in whatever combination you want. Here's another scene with all the bells and whistles from a Call of Cthulhu game. In addition to all of the things you can do with scenes, Alchemy also has a really robust theming system. So every game system has its own distinctive look. They each have a different color scheme and different fonts and different visual flourishes. So a Call of Cthulhu game looks very different than a Vampire the Masquerade game, which looks very different than a Blades in the Dark game, which looks very different than a Daggerheart game. And this helps make the UI fade into the background and just feel like part of your game. The second thing that I love about Alchemy are its safety tools. I realize that not everyone uses safety tools. You may have no need for them, especially if you're in an established group. But personally, I think they're a great way to make sure that everyone is on the same page and everyone can feel at ease during the game. And I'm really impressed with how thoughtfully implemented Alchemy's built-in safety tools are. First are lines and veils. You can set them up in your Alchemy user profile in the Safety tab by either selecting them from these drop-downs or just typing in your own. If you're not familiar with the concept, lines are things that you don't want to have in the game at all. Veils are things that can be referenced or implied, but you don't want them to be explicitly depicted in the gameplay. So for instance, I have things like SA, harm to animals, and harm to children in my veils. Those are concepts that can exist in the game, but only off-screen. They can be discussed or referenced, but I don't want to actually roleplay them. But those are things that villains do. I don't want to play a character who would do those things, or run a game where the players would do them. So I have PC-initiated SA, harm to animals, and harm to children in my lines. Then in the game, you can open the safety tools here and see an anonymous list of all of the lines and veils of everyone in the game. Here you can see the lines and veils that I added in my profile, and a player has also added snakes as a line and spiders as a veil. I like to review lines and veils with my players at the beginning of every session. There's also the X card, which is available here in this menu. When anyone in the game uses the X card, everyone else will see a pop-up like this, saying that someone is uncomfortable with something that's happening in the game, and then you can correct course. And both of these tools are anonymous. No one can see who entered a certain line or veil or who invoked the X card, and that in itself is another safety feature. The third thing that I love about Alchemy is its community. Alchemy has a large and active community of GMs and players on their Discord server. It's a great place to put a group together, get help or advice, or just talk about your favorite game. They're a friendly and helpful group of people, and I've found several excellent players in the Looking for Group channel. That leads nicely into the fourth thing that I love about Alchemy, the Alchemy staff. In addition to the awesome user community, Discord is also the best place to find the Alchemy staff. They're all very active and very responsive in here. If you post a question about something, you're just as likely to get a response from the Alchemy crew as from another user. The Discord has dedicated channels for reporting bugs, giving feedback, or suggesting features, and you can find several members of Alchemy staff there pretty much every day. The fifth thing that I love about Alchemy is the Alchemist program. Now, you can use Alchemy for free, with no limits on how many universes, games, or characters you can create. The Alchemist subscription is an optional program that comes with quite a few benefits. First, you get a 5% discount in the marketplace. You also get to vote in the roadmap. Every month you get 8 game votes and 8 feature votes, which you can use on these 2 pages to help guide what gets worked on next. You can put all of your votes into a single game or feature you're really excited about, or spread them around however you like. And then there's free stuff. You get 8 Essence points every month that you can use here in the Essence Exchange. And there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's whole game systems, including the enhanced editions, which come with a ton of assets. There's campaign settings, art and overlays for your scenes, music, and sound. There's something here for everyone, and every 3 months, a new batch of content becomes available. Alchemists also get access to dev chat videos from the developers showing what they're working on and what's on the horizon. I look forward to these every other Friday. And they get early access to new features. Here in the Labs section, you can see a few features that are in early release for Alchemists. An Alchemist subscription costs $8 per month or $88 per year, and it's worth every penny. With the Essence Exchange alone, you get more than your money's worth. So those are just some of the reasons I love Alchemy. But lest you think I'm a wide-eyed fanboy, I'll also acknowledge a few of the criticisms that I've seen online. The first criticism that I've heard is that it's hard to use. And it's true that Alchemy has a learning curve, especially if you're coming from other VTTs. Like I said before, Alchemy just works differently than other VTTs on the market, and it requires a little time to figure it out. But different doesn't mean harder. I've used other VTTs, and those took some figuring out as well. Anything is unfamiliar at first, but after a couple of sessions, you'll be a pro. And as I mentioned, there's a whole community of users and the Alchemy staff themselves who are happy to help. I'll also be releasing tutorial videos in the near future, so keep an eye on this channel. The second complaint that I've heard online is the slow release schedule. There is a pretty big backlog of games waiting to be implemented on Alchemy. Some of these have been here for quite a while. Alchemy has a very small dev team, literally 3 or 4 people. As a software developer myself, I can tell you that they're actually getting a lot done for such a small team. You could argue that they wouldn't have this bottleneck if they allowed for user-created content like some other VTTs do, and that's true. But if you've used those other platforms, you know that the level of quality can vary wildly, and you can't always get support when you have a problem. The Alchemy crew made a choice to do all of the dev work in-house, and obviously that's a decision that comes with consequences. But there are also benefits. When something doesn't work, you can get support, and bugs are usually fixed pretty quickly. It comes down to quality over quantity. Also, the platform has been undergoing massive changes that have taken up a lot of time. Late last year, they did a sweeping overhaul of the out-of-game experience, which was a huge improvement. And currently, they're doing a similarly comprehensive overhaul of the in-game experience. It's called the Lumen layout, and I've been using it in all of my examples. Once some of these really big projects are out of the way, I think we'll see a lot more movement on the roadmap. And another way of looking at it is that there's a lot of really great stuff coming. Probably the most common and most fair criticism that I've heard about Alchemy is that the tactical experience is a bit lacking. There are some features that are pretty common in other VTTs that are missing from Alchemy. Tactical play has never been Alchemy's primary focus, but they do recognize this gap and they are working to fill it. And even if the tactical experience isn't quite as robust as some other VTTs, it still has the fundamentals covered. You can have multi-stage maps. Maps can be static images or animated. You can use a grid or go gridless. Grids can be square, or hexagonal, or sideways hexagonal. You can adjust the opacity of the grid or invert its color so you can make sure it's visible against your map, but not too visible. There's a measuring tool for plotting movement or range. There's Fog of War, so the GM can obscure the map and reveal parts of it as needed. And the GM can also hide NPCs and only show them when it's appropriate. Drawing tools were one of the big features that had been missing, but they were just recently added, and more features are coming. With all that said, I realize that Alchemy may be missing a feature that is essential to how you play. Or you may be totally happy with your current VTT and feel no need to change. If so, that's cool. Happy gaming. But if you're new to playing TTRPGs online, or your current VTT isn't quite cutting it, give Alchemy a try. You can check it out for free, and you may find you love it as much as I do.